Yes, hi Bev. It is unusual that one country seizes the sovereign reserves of another, but this for Afghan people in Afghanistan is really just a continuation of what they've been dealing with since August the 15th last year. The United States froze the financial assets of the country. And as you said, this was about $9 or $10 billion. $7 billion of it is in the United States. And President Biden's executive order was a decision to allocate $3.5 billion, half of that, to victims of the 9/11 attacks in 2001, who won a court case. You know, it's been going on in the litigious manner that the US law moves. For compensation from the Taliban. Now, the Taliban were in power in Afghanistan when the 9/11 attacks happened, as you know, and they had played host to Al Qaeda, and Al Qaeda was the organization, the group that planned and executed the 9/11 attacks. Nothing to do with ordinary Afghan people. But the money that President Biden has decided is to be split between giving it to as compensation to the 9/11 victims' families and humanitarian relief in Afghanistan itself. It's using the money that really belongs to Afghan people. Now, if you're an Afghan and you go to the bank anywhere in the world, including in Afghanistan, and you put your ATM in the wall as we do, your money won't come out because they're the frozen assets. And so there is a lot of anger and disappointment that what President Biden has decided to do is co-opt and, in the words of some people I've been speaking to, steal their money and leave them as destitute as they have been since the country fell to the Taliban last August.
Yeah. And of course, the balance of these funds, he says, will be given to humanitarian assistance to Afghans. But the key question is, how are we going to be sure that it will reach the Afghans in dire need?
Well, what the executive order applies to is the setting up of a trust fund, if you like, at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And that will be where all the money that is in other places in the United States that belongs to the Afghan Central Bank will be deposited. And then a committee or a group will be set up that will oversee where that money goes. So there is some sort of inbuilt attempt to make sure that this money does not go to the Taliban. And that has been the consideration from the very beginning. But as you note, the question is, how do you make sure that the money actually gets to people who need it? The situation in Afghanistan at the moment is it's really terrible, but there's plenty of food, but people just don't have money to go and buy food. And so they're lining up for food that is being distributed to them, for instance, by the World Food Programme. But what the World Food Programme has been doing is getting food out of its stockpiles. It's been there for years and years. They always have this problem. It's rotten, it's inedible. And then they've been taking food in and just creating food dumps. So you might live in a town where the World Food Programme comes along with trucks, sets up a food dump, and you come along and get it. Now, if you can't come along and get it, you're going without as well. So inbuilt lack of oversight and potential for corruption there as well.
Lynne, what are you hearing, what are you finding out about how the Taliban is going about being in power on a day-to-day basis? What are they doing for money? How are they distributing whatever resources they have?
Well, they're not really. Some of the NGOs that I know of and speak to have been working independently to make sure that any aid, food and cash that they get in gets directly to communities. So there are very small local organisations that are working on the ground and with communities and getting food in for, let's say, 1,000 families at a time to get them through the next few months. So 6 months worth of food distributed to a specific area. Now, the UN has said that it's allocated $8-9 billion. A lot of that, a third of that, has traditionally gone to the subcontracted companies and distribution networks that take, like I said, a third of it, an enormous amount of the money that you and I and other taxpayers put into the UN for relief. the best way, in my humble opinion, to get relief in is to go through small NGOs that don't have overheads, that do deliver direct, and there are a few of them around. If you do your due diligence, you can find them, and that seems to be the most, well, incremental, of course, but certainly the most efficient way to get help to people who need it. Really releasing money into the bank so that people can get their own money out, so that they can live with dignity and buy food to feed their families, and possibly put money into their businesses, employ people. In a country like Afghanistan, it doesn't take much cash in a community to get the economy going again, and that's what's really needed. I think, personally, Afghan people should be like you and I and able to access their own money in their own bank accounts and make their own decisions about what they do with it.
Yeah. And what is the dynamic, do you think, with the Taliban's relationship with people, given that they are have no real capacity to run proper services and to in any way assist people, as you say, getting that economy restarted?
Well, the people that I've spoken to who are in Afghanistan, and I've asked, what do you think about this executive order by the Biden administration? There's a deep resignation, as well as anger and disappointment, but there's a deep resignation about the situation in which they find themselves. And one of the big considerations for a lot of ordinary people is that the Taliban don't get their hands on the money because they cannot be trusted. We know, and we've talked about this before, Bev, that the Taliban are the biggest drug cartel in the world. They are a criminal enterprise. They're involved in smuggling. They are quite it's not a unified organisation, and so you can't say that whatever is said in the centre from the Taliban figures who are running the country ostensibly as an interim government from Kabul are in touch with those who have been appointed as district and provincial governors. There doesn't seem to be any unity. There's no police force. There's no army. There isn't any security. What we're seeing a lot of on the ground is disappearances, kidnappings, women who stage demonstrations are taken from their homes, former members of the security forces, poets, teachers, university professors. There isn't any security. As you say, there is no governance. And so keeping the money out of the hands of the Taliban is one of the great priorities of people that I've been speaking to in recent days about this.
Lynne, always appreciate your very close understanding of this issue. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bev.